Okay, so my opponent, Sabina, her primary fact was that making condoms easily available in schools does not promote sex and has had positive outcomes. And her secondary claims were making condoms available in schools does not increase students' rate of sexual activity, but does result in higher rates of condom use among already sexually active students. And her secondary claim of fact was based on information given by the CDC, the increase in condom use decreases the spread of STDs and unwanted pregnancy. So this evening I will show you some of the flaws with the claim of fact Sabina presents by bringing to light some issues with the claim of fact itself, possible irregularities in the study she cites, the real rate of condom effectiveness, and how abstinence education can actually be more beneficial. The first issue with Sabina's speech is her claim of fact. It has multiple parts and lacks definition. The term positive outcomes is vague and could mean a multitude of things. Additionally, the term schools is unclear. In her introduction, she uses the availability of condoms on the Cal Poly Pomona campus as an example. And in the rest of her speech, she talks about a study that focuses on public high school students. So the type of students that are being discussed should be made clear. The main problem with my opponent's speech is that her entire case rests upon explaining one study that was published over 12 years ago. The topic of sex in society is constantly evolving, and a study from the late 90s may have totally different results if conducted today. Additionally, I have some issues with the methodology of the study itself. The study compares students in New York City and Chicago. These are two very different cities, and in my opinion, it may not be the best choice to compare students in two different parts of the country where ideas are very different. And no matter how hard a study may try, it is impossible to try and completely abolish the possibility of sample variability or error, especially when there are so many underlying factors in an experiment such as this one. Secondly, the other evidence in the speech is a statistic from the Centers for Disease Control, or CDC. This fact is, when used properly and consistently, condoms are 98% effective in preventing pregnancy. I will not deny this claim, but present you with one much more telling. According to the World Health Organization, a body of the UN, the real rate of pregnancy for typical condom use is 10 to 14%. This includes perfect and imperfect use. Now, it is much easier for imperfect use to occur than you may think. Something as simple as touching a condom with a person's nails can cause small holes which can lead to pregnancy or STDs. Finally, while giving out condoms in school may not promote sex, my opponent does not explore the fact that abstinence education can possibly decrease the occurrence of sex amongst teenagers. A recent study from the Archives of Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine, publication of the American Medical Association, published this month, showed that students taught abstinence-only education were less likely to have engaged in sexual activity after said education. 660 middle schoolers in Philadelphia were randomly assigned to one of 5 sex education programs. An 8-hour program where students were encouraged to delay having sex until they were ready, an 8-hour program about safe sex, another 8-hour program that did both, and a 12-hour program that did both, and finally an 8-hour program that did not touch on sex and only talked about other ways to live a healthy lifestyle. Within 2 years, 33.5% of the students who took the class encouraged them to delay sex had lost their virginity, compared to 48.5% who attended the class on the other ways to be healthy, and 52% of those who were only taught about safe sex. This study shows that abstinence-only education may actually deter teens from sexual activity that can lead not only to the physical consequences we are all well aware of, but also psychological effects. So while I agree with my opponent on some things, the real effectiveness of condoms and abstinence education should be brought to the attention of the public, and some of these statistics in my opponent's speech may be misleading. Thank you.
All right, well, you start off listing the proposition and the secondary claims pretty clearly. Then basically you preview your own claims. Most of your points are not automatically responsive to the secondary claims that the advocate presented, so we're primarily dealing with a counterclaim structure here that's put together on its own. You're going to make some of those applications, but it's going to be a little bit harder to follow. And if there were holes in the responses, they're going to be harder to check. Now, in a debate, that would be something that people would be paying closer attention to. Since we've had a 2-week gap, there's probably going to be some things that slip through here. I think your challenge on the study is okay, but they're just presses for the most part. You don't have any information that is particular to the problems of the study that the advocate cited, and why wouldn't some of the criticisms that you presented also apply to the study that you subsequently offer? I'm not quite sure why it's unique or what's specialized about it. Two pieces of evidence that I think are the strongest for your position, the information from the WHO that talks about typical condom use and the problems that it entails, and then your information about the study of abstinence-only education programs. I thought that that's a good piece of counter evidence to the point. But we are getting two studies with contradictory conclusions. Why should we believe one more than the other? Why should one be seen as more trustworthy? You mentioned that the other study is older. I don't remember a source. I don't remember when the study that you presented was done, and I think if it's a more recent one, you want to emphasize that point to get more of a value out of it, more mileage.